Good evening and calling the meeting to order. Welcome to the West Hartford Public Schools regular Board of Education meeting. It is Tuesday, April the 1st, 2025. Charlotte, may you please call the roll?
Mr. Gagnon?
Here.
Mr. Goldman?
Here.
Dr. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Merriman?
She's here.
On by phone.
Mrs. Nezzarella?
Present.
Dr. Thomas Farquharson?
Here.
Mrs. Yagaloff?
Present.
Student Representative Sarah Granquist?
Here.
And Student Representative Alexis Nguyen?
Here.
Thank you. And Sarah, may you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do not have a revision to the agenda order. Now it is time for public communications. First off, I want to thank all of you for your patience as we're getting started. We do have all of our teammates here. However, as you can tell, some of them are virtually here. So thank you very much. So we do have Dr. Harris, who is via Superintendent Vicinus's phone, and Shannon Marimone, she is via my phone, but she's en route here. Our teammates are very dedicated, and so we appreciate all the means in which they are here to participate. So again, moving on to public communications, this is an opportunity for us to hear from you, your thoughts, your questions, your suggestions. Each individual is allowed 3 minutes to speak. We ask when you go to the podium to please share your name and your town of residence. Please be mindful of Charlotte, who will hold up a yellow card when you have 1 minute remaining in your time. And when your time has expired, you will see a red card. We ask for you please to conclude your sentence and respectfully take your seat. Please know that we are attentively listening to what is being shared. However, it is policy that we do not respond to comments as they are being made. We are receiving comments on all items. We do prioritize first hearing from those speaking on agenda items. And for our awareness for this evening, the agenda includes adoption of the 2025-2026 Board of Education budget, State of Connecticut Healthy Food Certification 2025-2026, non-renewal of non-tenured personnel, approval of the financial report for period ending February 28, 2025, approval of minutes from the March 4th, 2025 Board of Ed meeting, approval of minutes from the March 12th, 2025 Board Budget Workshop, and approval of minutes from the March 26th, 2025 Budget Workshop. So with the list we have here, I will start with those who signed up to speak on agenda items. And we have Shayna Quinn.
Hi, my name is Shayna Quinn and I live in West Hartford. Tonight, the elected Board of Ed votes on the superintendent's proposed 2025-26 budget. In recent weeks, community members, many of whom are teachers themselves, have made it explicitly clear that we do not support the reduction of elementary teacher positions. Cutting elementary teaching positions is a short-term solution, a low-hanging fruit. You must consider at least maintaining the current elementary teacher staffing levels. Bear in mind, the hundreds of children directly affected by these cuts started kindergarten and first grade online and in masks. The long-term consequences outweigh the short-term inconvenience of revising the proposed budget. Sure, teachers and students can adapt to larger classes, ultimately because they have no choice. You all have a choice on the matter tonight. Fiscal responsibility and evidence-based decisions should apply across all areas of the budget, and some expenditures have not been scrutinized closely. For example, I have not heard much open dialogue on central office spending. At the Board of Ed meeting on March 18th, multiple parents asked, why are there no cuts to central office? Why cut teachers when they have direct impact on students? In response to the claim that our district's standardized test scores were outstanding in the past, even with larger class sizes, I would maintain that during those years, teachers likely spent precious hours teaching to those very tests that you're referencing, replacing creative, engaging, authentic project and inquiry-based learning with test prep. We must consider the long-term benefits of maintaining smaller classes, not just the quantifiable outcomes of standardized tests. Yes, these tests do provide important benchmarks, easily published and shared, but they do not capture the full picture of educational success. The fiscal challenges we face have been made apparent, but a deeper analysis of spending within pupil services must occur too. What about the adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure? Don't you think behavior and academic challenges will only increase with larger classes? Please do not misunderstand my message here. Special education services are essential and legally protected, and the funding complicated, but the efficiency within that department must be analyzed deeply. Based on the most recent data published by the School and State Finance Project, West Hartford spent 29% of our total school budget for the 22-23 school year on special ed services, yet very little of the latest budget conversations have addressed this large variable. I've watched and taken notes on every single one of your meetings this year. It is my duty as the Whiting Lane PTO liaison to the board, and your commitment to our town and the education within our schools is palpable. Now, demonstrate your commitment to the highest quality education and use your position as elected officials who represent the people of this town and do not approve the budget as is. It's okay to revisit and revise. Encourage the superintendent to reimagine his current plans to consolidate elementary classes. It is the duty of the Board of Ed to represent the interests of the community, and this community has demonstrated strong opposition to these elementary teacher cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on an agenda item? Please come to the podium and share your name. And certainly.
I'm 11th and I live in West Hartford. We are 8th graders representing Quest from King Philip Middle School. We're speaking on behalf of the Quest program with the aim to keep all the Quest teachers in the middle schools. Quest is aimed to ensure the development of academically gifted students in the district. But above that, Quest is an important part of our lives, as students can learn and grow in a safe, creative environment. That environment is in jeopardy with the recent discussion of moving a Quest teacher from the middle schools.
Priya Chopra, I live in West Hartford. As it stands, there are 103 Quest students between only 2 teachers at KP. Losing one of our very talented teachers would be incredibly detrimental to a project that requires a very unique one-on-one connection between students and staff. We have been able to create unique relationships with our teachers, and we need them to work as a Quest unit. These 3 years that students are allowed to participate in this class enable us, as students, to have the opportunity to not only enhance our learning and reach our potential, but to also build relationships with our Quest teachers and the students involved in the program. I have made so many new connections with students who think like me, which has made my KP experience so much more enjoyable.
Annie Zhao, I live in West Hartford. Thanks to our teachers, we've been able to accomplish the difficult goal of the Type 3 research project each year, but with just one teacher, our classes would have twice the number of students and half the amount of learning. From my experience, the Type 3 project requires a substantial amount of work, both from the teacher and the student. In 6th grade, I wrote a book, and my teacher spent an equal, if not more, amount of time going through and proofreading and fixing my writing. With double the amount of kids in each class, that would simply be not possible.
William Bloomquist Jordan, West Hartford. When the current 8th graders, including myself, were in 6th grade, we experienced a similar situation of only having one Quest teacher. That was during a transitional time while King Philip was hiring a second teacher, and we all spent 2 months learning in one classroom for one teacher. The class ended up being chaotic, loud, and difficult. I remember those months as being incredibly disorganized because there were too many sixth graders in one classroom. No one had the voice they were entitled to in the normal Quest format. If this became an everyday occurrence, we would not be able to express ourselves at all.
Marley Scott, West Hartford. We are asking you to stop this act from happening. Our Quest teachers are quintessential parts of our class, lives, and academic careers. We treasure the one-of-a-kind connection we've made with them. In a small educational environment, we are able to learn so much from them, but this could be taken away from us. We need the Quest program and the funding it has now to be able to continue learning in ways that benefit us at KP and in West Hartford.
Finally, we would like to share a few statistics from the petition we passed around the school today to show our community's support on the matter. We collected 125 student signatures in favor of keeping all of our Quest teachers, including 38 signatures from Quest students. We also got 13 signatures from parents and teachers. All of this was achieved in under 2.5 hours, collecting just a few signatures out of the many like-minded students at KP. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on an agenda item? Otherwise, we'll move on to those who've signed up to speak on general comments. All right. With the list for those speaking on general comments, we first have William Bloomquist and Jordan, or maybe that's a hyphenated last name. So William. That's all right. Oh, I see all of, okay, William and Emma and Annie, Raina, Marley. No, do not apologize. That's all right. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on any topic? Once again. All right, thank you. We shall pause on public communications. And now moving on to non-staff communications and reports. This is where we're able to hear from our student representatives what's going on in their schools. So let us begin with Alexis, please. What is going on at Conard?
Happy April, everyone. As third quarter ends and fourth quarter begins starting tomorrow, Conard students are involved with numerous exciting activities. Last Friday, we had our Unified Sports Pep Rally, sponsored by ESPN Sports, which celebrated the amazing achievements of our Conard Hall Unified Sports teams. The pep rally highlighted the talents of many of our student athletes and sparked lots of cheer from everyone in attendance. We were also able to unveil our new banner that names us a Unified Champion School through 2027. Thank you to the numerous amounts of people involved that made this such an amazing event, and it truly was such a memorable pep rally. We also have been celebrating our boys hockey team, who became back-to-back state champions after defeating JBWA 4-1 in the D3 championship. A huge congratulations to the coaches and players of this outstanding program. There was no better way to close out this year's winter sports season. We look forward to the upcoming achievements of our spring sports teams as scrimmages and games begin this week. The Conard chapter of the Technology Student Association competed this past weekend at the TSA state competition in Killingly. 15 outstanding students competed all day at this event and brought home phenomenal awards. They swept the competition, earning first, second, and third place honors in video game design, coding, photographic technology, technology bowl, CO2 dragster design, architectural design, web design, structural engineering, 3D engineering design, music production, and technical problem solving. As you can see, congratulations to all the students involved with this remarkable success in all different categories. The World Language Honor Society induction will take place in the auditorium on the evening of April 8th. Students that show a high level of comprehension and fluency in their respective languages will be honored and inducted into the Conard chapter of their World Language Honor Society. Next Wednesday, students in our acting classes will take part in Fictional Character Day, where they will portray a character of their choice all day and present their research and extensive knowledge of said character to the rest of the school. On April 11th, there will be a breakfast at 7 a.m. in the library to honor Military Purple Up Day. And then our choir program will put on their fantastic annual Broadway concert on April 25th at 7:30 p.m., a concert filled with outstanding musicality and voices that honor the brilliance of Broadway musicals. This is a must-attend concert. If you can't make it to the Friday show, no worries, because this year there will be a second performance on the following Saturday at the same time. The Unified Theater production has been coming along smoothly. I'm happy to share that the theme for this year is Once Upon a Time. with many humorous skits that present the acting talents of all of our students, regardless of if they actually are an actor or not. The audience is in for a treat. Shows take place on May 1st and May 2nd, so mark your calendars and come to this entertaining performance. There will also be a Unified Theater ice cream social to celebrate the production on April 10th in the cafeteria. Happening throughout the first week of May, the spring play will take place in the Black Box that Thursday through Saturday. And of course, spring break starts in less than 2 weeks, so hold on, everyone, we're almost there.
Thank you, Alexis. Sarah, please share what's going on at Hall.
Happy April 1st. As always, we have been very busy at Hall with academic and extracurricular activities. Last week, a number of Hall musicians, dancers, singers, and crew members put on 6 incredible pops and jazz performances with multiple sold-out shows. We want to congratulate every student and faculty member who participated in this production. Their hard work really paid off with these professional quality shows. This past week, we also participated in some not so exciting standardized testing, in particular for our juniors. All juniors at Hall and Connor took a digital SAT test last Thursday, which went very smoothly. Last week, Hall students had the opportunity to take the CELA biliteracy exam, and yesterday, all juniors took the NGSS test, which completes the graduation testing requirement for science. Some very exciting news. Mrs. Isaacs was recently appointed as Hall's principal. As you all may know, she's been our interim principal this school year, and we are so lucky to have her as a leader in our school. Congratulations to Mrs. Isaacs. Some more good news. Last week on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, NEAS visited Hall for an accreditation meeting, and we're very happy with us. Thank you to all of the administrators, teachers, and students who helped to coordinate the NEAS visit. West Hartford's Registrar of Voters, Elizabeth Rousseau, visited Hall last Thursday to help eligible students, including myself, register to vote during lunch waves. We want to thank her for helping to make this process easier for our students who will be voting for the first time in the fall. Tomorrow is Paraprofessional Appreciation Day, and we want to thank all of our paras. We truly could not do it without you. We also want to shout out our students who are a part of West Hartford Unified Sports who were honored on Friday at the ESPN Pep Rally at Conard. Spring sports started this week, and tomorrow marks the end of quarter 3 and the beginning of quarter 4. This Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Town Hall, the West Hartford Community of Concern will be hosting a teen wellness fair in partnership with many other organizations. All Hall students were invited to attend and participate in wellness activities such as yoga, QPR training, and art therapy. All students grades 6 through 12 and their caregivers are welcome to attend.
Thank you, Sarah. Both Alexis and Sarah, thank you so much. I have a quick question. Is senioritis starting to kick in? Yes? All right. Hang in there like you said. All right. Thank you both so very much. Now moving on to unfinished business, where we have adoption of the 2025-2026 Board of Education budget. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education review the superintendent's proposed budget in the amount of $215,226,800, make revisions as necessary, and adopt the 2025-2026 Board of Education budget. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Discussion. So, teammates, here we are. Again, we've been building up for this moment for quite some time. And this now is when we officially vote on the budget, but not without having discussion and review, and certainly taking into account all of the feedback that we have received. But before we move any further, Superintendent Vicines, just want to see if there is anything for you to share before we continue on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And again, thank you all for all of the effort related to the budget. I want to thank the community. There's been a dramatic amount of community engagement, not only through participation at this event and our public hearing and public comment, but throughout the 3 community conversations that were just concluded last night. I want to thank Mayor Sherry Cantor and Rick Ledwith and our Deputy Mayor, Ben Winograd as well. Just the support and the collaboration has been phenomenal. And I would be remiss to not give Ms. Hewitt another huge shout out here. for all the work of her office. One of the things I wanted to highlight before we started for all the board members, however, is kind of the work that happens in between. So we had a formal presentation of the budget much earlier this month, or much earlier, I guess, in March. It's already April. And then we had the workshops, but we had a regular Board of Education meeting where budget really wasn't an item. And in between that time, we continue to do work. We've, as you know, in one of the workshops, we provided you with some updated figures for class enrollments, and we're always looking at what those refinements might be. We wanted to be able to provide you with some information because we do have some refinements to the budget that I think you would want to consider in your deliberations based on the latest and greatest information that we're able to receive from folks like our insurance companies and the state partnership plan. So, and I'll let Liz kind of talk through them all, but just to kind of give you an understanding, as you know, one of the things that we presented when I first provided the recommended budget was that the state partnership plan cost estimate that we built the budget on was 10%. And we did receive, just prior to that period, an updated figure, and it did not change dramatically. It only changed by 1/10 of a point to 9.9%. But there were some other information within that does effectuate a savings that we can account for. And then in addition, in conversation with some of our insurance providers, we've received some updated rates. So with that kind of lead up and explanation, I'm going to turn this over to Liz, who can give you some specific figures across a number of categories that I think she's typing in as I speak. And I'll let her kind of give you the detail on that as to where this updated information came from and how you might consider it.
Thank you, Paul. As Paul mentioned, and as we talked about previously, we had assumed in the budget an increase of 10% to our state partnership premium rates. As you know, they came in at 9.9%. We do actually have the actual rates at this point in time. And in addition to the 9.9%, there is a county adjustment for Hartford County. So what the state does is they put out their overall increase, and then based upon different expenditures in various counties in the state, they make an adjustment to those premiums. So Hartford County had a reduction of 0.5%. And so because of that, I am estimating at this point in time that our overall premiums for the year will be $150,000 lower than what is included in the budget. So if you would like to make that adjustment, it would result in a reduction of $150,000 to the number that is proposed. In addition, in March, we met with our insurance carrier who covers both our LTD and our life insurance premiums, and they have agreed to hold our rates flat for the upcoming year. So we had anticipated in the budget that you see an increase of $10,000 for long-term disability insurance and $15,000 for life insurance. And given that they now have agreed to keep our rates flat for a year, if you so choose, you can reduce our budget by the $25,000 for those two combined amounts. Do you want me to keep going, or do you? The other item that we have talked about briefly, and that we certainly have talked about in great deal in prior years, is our retiree health reserve. And as you know, we have this reserve to address the costs of benefits that are provided in retirement, including our contribution to the OPEB fund, which is the Other Post-Employment Benefit Fund. And so I look at that every couple of months to see where our reserve is, how the fund is performing, and in the budget that you have, we are using $350,000 of that reserve. And if you would like, we can go and use an additional $150,000 to effect a reduction in the amount that you have.
And then I think lastly, we talked about the anticipated net metering.
We did. All right, I'm going to talk in that type. I'll type.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. The last item that we've been able to take a look at is our contribution to the Utility Services Fund. So I think, as you all know, we have an energy specialist who works with both the town and the board on conservation efforts, but also on agreements with utilities to do forward pricing on rates, et cetera. And one of the things that we do is, we have solar, and we sell back that power, and we get a reduction in our electricity rates. Based upon our usage for the year, we are eligible in some years, not every year, for what's called a virtual net metering credit, and it's basically how much we've used versus how much energy we have produced through these solar agreements. So we have received preliminary notification that we should receive a virtual net metering credit of approximately $150,000 in May. So last year we did not receive one at all. The year before we received, I believe it was approximately 175, although I'd have to go back and see the actual amount. It is not a guarantee, but she feels pretty confident at this point in time that we will receive those funds. And those are the items, I believe, that have changed since we met last and since the document was put together.
Thank you. Ethan?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you had a fourth item. What was that again?
So utility, the health reserve.
Yeah.
And then the utility contribution.
How much was health reserve?
150.
So you just need us to say go? Oh, you're going to do it.
No, you need to vote on all of these. I was just having trouble talking and typing at the same time.
So thank you very much, Liz. Jason, yes.
Could you just provide a little bit more color for what the retiree health reserve is, and if we would be taking money out of it this year, do we have to put it back in next year? The impacts on future budgets.
Exactly. So we would not have to put more money in next year to make up for that. However, we are utilizing that reserve over a set period of time to pay not only to help pay for retiree health care, but also to phase in our actuarially, there we go, determined contribution for our OPEB benefits going forward. And so, anytime you use more of the reserve now, it certainly is not available to meet those future needs. At this point in time, I think even with use of this $150,000, the reserve will help us smooth that contribution in for probably 5 more years.
All right. So, Jason, were you all set with it? Okay. So, thank you. I just want to make sure that with this information, which is good information to hear, just to collectively summarize. So, in terms of the potential reductions, and again, we would have to vote on each item to amend, so this can impact the proposed budget. We would have to vote on each item to affect that. We would have in regard to the projected state partnership plan estimate, it has come in at 9.9% as opposed to 10%. So that saves about $150,000.
Correct.
The second line item is with respect to the life insurance, where they're holding it at a flat rate. Mm-hmm. And so with those two areas, that is $25,000. The third being use of the retiree health reserve, and that is $150,000. And the fourth is contribution to the utility services fund, and that also is $150,000.
It is.
So if we were to vote in favor of applying all of these proposed reductions, the total amount would be
$475,000.
All right, and that would be $475,000 taken from the current proposed budget. Okay. Correct. Teammates, other questions or comments with these proposed pieces? And again, we'll vote on each one individually, but any other questions you may have? Claire.
Is this the totality of beneficial surprises that we're going to hear about? I mean, as far as funding, grants, or is that to come, or is this the totality?
Those are the only adjustments that I have for you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
This is in general, right?
With the items right here. We're going to open it up for in general, but just want to address these items here. Okay. All right. Shannon, may you have, Shannon is en route here.
I was just going to ask if knowing this I guess is the ball entirely in our court at this point, or does this affect the superintendent's proposal in any way in thinking about any changes in addition, given these adjustments?
So what I may, in response to that, I think if we were to vote in favor of these proposed amounts, and we will see the new proposed budget, then once we have our open discussion, then we shall see. So we don't have an answer just at this time. Or Paul, would you like to respond?
If I understood the question was, is this a change to the superintendent's proposed budget? I would say my recommended budget. My recommended budget is a matter of record from the March 1st, third meeting. So my recommended budget is my recommended budget. This is new information for you as a board, for you to consider in terms of your budget adoption. So you would need to, I'm not able to go back in time and change what I've recommended. You would need to take advantage of these or choose not to, and specific to the line items that are here, obviously. And then any other amendments to the budget that you guys want to discuss this evening.
She said thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments with these 4 items?
Any questions on these items?
I just was curious. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just was curious what those reductions would bring the entire budget down in terms of the percent at the top, which I can't see right this minute, but I think is 7.2%. So if all of those numbers were applied to reducing the budget, what would the percent increase be on the budget?
6.9.
Correct. That would reduce the budget. If all were applied, that would reduce the budget to 6.9.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So with the first recommendation with respect to revising the state partnership plan premium rates and applying the reduction of $150,000, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second? Second. We have 2. All right, Ethan. We'll get to the next time, Claire. Thank you. The further discussion, again, with respect to revising the state partnership premium rates plan and reducing it by $150,000 to the budget. Any other discussion? All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to the next one with respect to insurance company, the insurance rates. And there are 2 pieces, but they overall are in regard to the insurance rate, and that being a flat life insurance proposal piece. So we'll do each individual one. So with respect to revising the rates, reducing it by $10,000, is there a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Claire. Discussion. Again, with reducing
Long-term disability.
the long-term disability, thank you, in the amount of $10,000. Any other discussion? All of those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Still in that same regard, with respect to reducing it by $15,000 in terms of the long-term disability, is there a motion?
Just a correction, Madam Chairperson, reducing the life insurance rates.
The life insurance rates, okay. That's all right. No one. Thank you. Want to do it correctly. So the first one was in regard to long-term disability. The second one is in regard to the life insurance rates. Thank you. So seeking a motion to reduce the budget in the amount of $15,000 as it pertains to the life insurance rates. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, LaToya. Discussion. All of those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to the third item, categorical item that is, with respect to the retiree health reserve. reducing the budget in the amount of $150,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second? Thank you, Ethan. Discussion. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any oppose? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Moving on to the fourth item, contribution to the Utility Service Fund, reducing it in the amount of $150,000. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, LaToya. Discussion. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any oppose? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. All right. So with that, teammates, thank you so much for your participation in that. Now the total budget that we are to consider for our vote is in the amount of $214,751,800. So that now brings it down to an increase of 6.9%, 6.95%. And so with that, now we'll open it up in general, overall, with respect to the budget and thoughts, discussion, comments, suggestions. Jason.
I was just wondering, Paul, if you could, just because one of the big issues that we've had over the last number of weeks has been, I think maybe just collectively kind of we all have had trouble messaging what is exactly proposed with respect to Quest, and I think if you could just give that one more go, since we have people in the audience who I'm sure are interested in that.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Jason. So, as was shared at the last board workshop, and so inspired by the outpouring of support for our Quest program, it speaks volumes to the quality of the program and the inspiration that the teachers provide to students. It did seem to be, that there may have been some messaging that was misunderstood with families, that there was any effort to, have a dramatic change in any way, shape, or form. I did send out at least one communication, and I know there were some folks that wrote after that initial communication to try to clarify that what's intended is to trim some staffing in response to a decrease in overall school-based enrollment that we've seen, and to be able to find some scheduling efficiencies. I'm not proposing any programmatic changes to the Quest program. I know we had a lot of elementary folks come out initially at first, and there seemed to be some concern. Was this going to mean there'd be less Quest time? Was this going to mean that it was going to eliminate opportunities for enrichment for students not enrolled in Quest? None of that is what is being considered. It should be true that we, as we do currently, typically we have one teacher who works across 2 elementary schools. They're able to provide the 2 hours of general Quest at each grade level per week, and the 3 hours of math Quest at each grade level per week. We are looking, I know we have some middle school students here in the audience, and we are looking to potentially see, are there some savings that we can have? I believe the current class sizes at one of the middle schools, but not both, are very, very small. And there is a breaking point to the students, comments, points that, hey, there may be times when we do need 2 sections to run at the same time. And I'm aware of at least one cohort at one of our middle schools that's fairly large that we would look to potentially break. But there are other cohorts at different grade levels that are smaller, where instead of having classes anywhere from 4 to 8, we might expect classes more from 8 to 12. So those are the kinds of scheduling efficiencies that I'm talking about, to ensure that we're maximizing the use of the FTEs that are there, without any without any intended negative implications to our schedule or to our program. And I think that we can do that at the staffing levels that have been recommended.
Other questions or thoughts? Again, this is our opportunity And we've had many opportunities. We're so thankful for all of the time that you all have put into the discussions we've had at the board table, at our public hearing, at our community conversations, and so appreciative, of course, of those that have contributed to that. And so, Claire.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Oh, I could let Claire go. I'm actually pulling in, so I'll ask when I get up.
Okay, thank you.
So the proposed class size document that you shared with us, where that stood is that right now you anticipate 0 classes at the max of 27 and a total of 6 at the max of 26 out of all the fourth grade and 5th grade. Is that still accurate?
So, thank you for the question. I know class size has been clearly one of the more hotly debated topics within this budget, and understandably so. And as I've said, I'm certainly not advocating for larger class sizes. However, we've built our budget off of our existing guidelines. We ran an enrollment projection in late February, Liz, was in preparation for the early March presentation. And at that time, that's the enrollment projection that lives online in our data supplement. That enrollment projection was a point in time measure and a tool, and from that we saw that we could assign 193 of the 196 requested elementary sections and still have 3 sections to give. But in that enrollment tool, there were several that were at our existing class size guideline max for the upper grades at 27. That's for 4th and 5th grade. We reran that enrollment projection in order to support an understanding with all of the dialogue that was going on within the community that these projections are all point in time. They're very fluid. They change as folks reach out to us and either provide us information about them moving into the district or potentially moving out of the district. But there was also the significant variable of our magnet enrollments. So we reran the projections as of March 26th. And so the data that is most up to date in what I had shared at that workshop was the March 26th data. And as I said, I am happy. I have not yet gotten it up online, but I am happy to. But in that, there were apparently either some move-outs within 4th and 5th grade, but more than likely a number of folks who may have been magnet applications in those grades. And then there were also some move-ins in 4th and 5th grade that crested particular grade levels over our guideline max to then break it into 3 sections instead of 2. So, so to answer your question, in that particular enrollment projection, as of March the 26th, I do not take note of any class sizes that would be at 27. However, there are some at 26, and I've certainly heard from those communities for whom those are. There are also some, when you pull some out, there are some where maybe they had 3 sections and now it's come down to a collapsing, where under this tool there would be some sections at 23. But again, this document is also just a planning tool, and at the bottom it reflects there are 4 sections available to still be distributed. And we would distribute those basically once we had the best information possible later in the year, as we always do, to those areas where we see the need, because there may be still some give and take. There may be some students who move in on their own and a section breaks and we have to add there. There may be some places where there's some 2 or 3 families who move out and there's a section collapse and we have to look at that. So all of those things come into play a little bit later on down in the year, but with the most recent one, I do have 4 sections that'll be built within the budget with which to consider. If something, and we think those 4 sections would be sufficient to staff at our current class size guidelines. if something unusual happens, as is sometimes the case, and for instance, kindergarten is always the toughest one to predict because in all of the other grades, the students and the families are known quantities. So we have a very high ratio of what used to be called the cohort survival ratio idea of if I'm in first grade with you this year, I am very likely to be in second grade with you next year. Kindergarten is the hard one. So sometimes we can have fewer sections than we anticipated. Sometimes we can have greater. But in any case, where we would see at any grade level an extraordinary need that would cause us to go over budget, that'd be something that we monitor closely, consider very carefully based on the financial constraint, but add where we need to. And this current year is an example of that, where we had the need to add. What we do when we add, however, I do want to make mention, we try to do so equitably. So if I'm going to add to a place because there might be, I'll say 26 students, I'm going to look, are there other instances where that's true? Because it becomes a hard argument to defend that I'm able to do it at one school and not do it for another, because there is always, a set of circumstances that do need to be considered. So we do try to be equitable with that, recognizing that there's really no way to equalize the number of births in a particular neighborhood, so cohorts of students will vary year over year. But the part that we try to remain equitable with is in the application of the class size guidelines that we have and the exceptions that we make when we do.
So have there been years where you've had a budget set, school starts and classes are maxed out and you've had to hire a teacher at the last minute and then find places within the budget to cover that because you can't raise the budget?
It would be unusual. I think it would be highly unusual for school to be started. What we really try to do is use that late August date of when we send out the class lists as kind of our cutoff. There certainly have been instances, again, this year is an instance where coming up to that date, approaching that date, or even well beforehand, we sort of had indications that we were going to need to hire and have gone over budget. But typically, if we're right at a brink and we get one or even two move-ins at a particular grade level at a particular school, that puts a school over the guidelines, what we've done is we've hired a teaching assistant, someone to go into the class to provide additional support and to support supervision of small group instruction. So that's our typical. I don't know if there's been a recent occurrence or an occurrence that I can recall where we're breaking classes after students have already met with their teachers. Typically it would be highly problematic for parents, and so it's something that we would shy from.
Other questions? Shannon.
Yeah, apologies for being late. I've been in 3 airports today, so my question was along the exact same line, so you covered it. Thank you.
Other comments? Claire.
Can you clarify, you have up there 5.2 certified FTEs as an addition. Is that correct?
That is correct. So as we've gone through the budget, what you're seeing here is the comparison of certified and non-certified FTEs, budget to budget.
Okay.
But the numbers you're probably more familiar with are the comparison that Paul did in his presentation, which is our roll forward budget to what's proposed.
Okay. So in that, are we losing 5 certified teachers?
No, that means that we have 5. We will have 5 more in the upcoming year than we do this year. Okay. 5.2 more. We will have 4.65 fewer non-certified, and so the difference in total FTEs is less than 1 position.
Okay.
Adopted to adopted.
Adopted to adopted.
If I may, what does hold is we will have from we do anticipate 8.2 total positions fewer. That cuts across teaching positions, that cuts across some administrative positions. I think we've talked about what those positions are during our budget workshops. I know there's been some emails, there's been some concerns about, I've read some language in some of the emails about, one person used the word firing teachers, one person used the word teacher layoffs. Certainly, it's not a firing, but I appreciate the concern out there for our highly dedicated, folks meet a person and, the teachers really are transformational in their children's lives. So there's concern about losing those individuals. We work very, very hard, through our process when we have this to try to ensure that we can find a spot for folks when we're going down in positions. We're pretty successful with that. I can't guarantee that we're always 100% successful, but what happens, just so that the folks at home can understand, is, when we look at our retirements, when we look at folks who may be moving out of, themselves moving, or a maternity leave, or things of this nature, we generally then, anyone who's in a position that wouldn't be there, we would give them the opportunity to be moving into whether that's a new school or perhaps a new grade level at the same school or a different school. And in cases where that can't happen, then there's a process that we follow for reduction in force.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? All right. Claire, yes.
Do you have an anticipation of how many teachers you will be hiring this year?
I'm not sure how many we'll be hiring. I know in a typical year, we have between 20 and 25 retirements. So I don't think that accounts for, just typical attrition. Julia may be able to address that, but from a retirement perspective alone, we generally have 20 to 25.
Other questions or comments? Just something I just want to ensure that I'm understanding well, and pardon, you've already explained. So with respect to the class size, I know we've had a lot of feedback, a lot of comments via email, and we very much appreciate all of the participation in the listening sessions. And I just want to, I don't want to assume, but I am sure that with respect to the class size, I don't believe it ever is a desire to strive to have the highest number of students in the classroom.
Correct. That is not the aspiration.
And from what I'm hearing as well, in terms of the number per classroom, it is quite variable. It's changing week to week, day to day.
Correct. The estimates that we look at, and certainly as we get later into the school year, or this year, and into the summer, as families, that's typically the time frame if for families who are moving in or moving out, to be providing notification, there can be a lot of variability with the estimates.
Thank you. And then with that, again, recognizing it never is an intent to have the most number of kids in a classroom, and also recognizing the numbers are constantly changing, because our priority is always to deliver quality education. There have been instances where even after we have voted on the budget, where you and the team have had to make an executive decision to add a classroom, let's say, because of, again, the numbers rapidly changing. So is it fair to say top of mind is still, again, being mindful of the ratio in the classroom and the numbers and trying?
Very fair to say. In fact, this year is a perfect example. This current budget year, we're 3 sections above what you adopted essentially a year ago today.
Thank you. And is it also fair to say, and Claire, I'm looking your way as being one of our teachers here, that certainly recognizing it is preferred not to have the highest number of students in a classroom. However, the makeup of a classroom, in the functionality of a classroom, is more than just the number per se. There are other pieces that play a role in how a classroom functions, such as, of course, the makeup of the students, but also the wonderful leadership of the teachers that are in the classroom. Is that fair to say, Claire? I don't want to speak.
Yeah, a class of 20 can feel like 30, depending on the impact and the skills of the teacher. So it changes. But I've had as few as 17 and as many as 28.
And pardon me, Latoya, you also are.
Yeah, no, I was going to add
pardon, yes.
very similarly. I think I shared this yesterday at the listening session, but as a classroom teacher, I never had under 30 students because of where I was teaching. And I don't know. It was fine. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it came from creating a really solid partnership with the special education teachers and just the school village at large to make it work. But I think coming back home to Connecticut was like, this is kind of eye-opening for me that there are smaller classes than 30. That sounds,
Thank you. So again, I know we certainly don't take this lightly at all. It's helpful to know there are many pieces that play a role in the classroom and the size and the function. But thank you. I just wanted to confirm that. Also, too, another piece that has received a lot of attention, and questions have already been raised about that with respect to Quest. And I might pass the baton. Shannon, thank you.
Yeah, one thing that I just was trying to make sense of was with the math respective to what was shared in terms of the total student enrollment and eligible students for Quest as of 2014-15. That decreased about 11%. Between 2014-15 and current or the coming year, and the proportional proposal for reduction in FTEs for Quest is also a relative 11% reduction. So it's a very proportional adjustment. So I think just layering on to what you said earlier, it's not diminishing Quest in any way. It's actually just proportionally aligning it with the enrollment of our student population and those who are even eligible to be a part of Quest. So I think it's helpful to share that as just it's not going to change the nature of the ratio.
Correct. And I know something that got brought up in the workshop, because there was a question about, the number of, I think it was even the number of students that were serviced in Quest separate from the staffing ratios. Had it gone up, had it gone down, and the percentage of students identified and receiving services in Quest was, I think it was at that same 12%. We talked about it at one of the pieces. One of the things I want to reiterate, there's different ways that we can deliver the program that can have different financial implications. And some of those, some of those can be more cost effective, but would potentially be delivering less of a service to kids. That's not what's being proposed. We're not looking to combine grade levels or alter the amount of time that we're providing to the students. So really, when I talk about it's a trim, it's not a cut. I'm choosing those words specifically to really just reflect what you're saying, to make some small, modest cuts in the same way with fewer elementary sections. There's going to be one or two fewer sections of world language that need to be supported just based on that at a given school, or one or two fewer sections of art or music. Not looking to cut that program, just looking to adjust the staffing levels in support, proportionally in support of the same delivery of the overall program.
Thank you. Shannon, yes.
One last item that's come up a number of times is the Bristow assistant principal role. Could you just explain again just the rethinking of that role?
Yes, thank you very much. This got some late attention at one of the budget workshops, and I was glad to be able to talk about it and have a back and forth dialogue with folks that were providing advocacy, because not only like our teaching roles, our administrators do just amazing work and demonstrate incredible dedication to their students, to their families, and to the schools in which they work. We've had a long-standing, I don't know if I know it's more than 5 or if it's even as many 10 years that we've had the split within the Bristow to where the assistant principal, when we started to reduce the class size at Bristow from 140 students across teams down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 105 right now. We looked at the assistant principal role, and we had other needs. We said we could use some help with supervision in other areas. And so we made the assignment of the Bristow assistant principal, wanting to maintain an assistant principal, be a little bit shared, and say we were going to have 30% of that 30% of that position be dedicated to some other things. And early on, that was providing help with supervision at the elementary level, which meant that there would be a caseload assigned at one or two schools, and the assistant principal would make time in their day and their week to go out and visit that elementary school and do observations with teachers, do goal setting, do post-conferencing. And then we refined that to say, well, let's make it one school so that they can have a little bit of a foothold, a little bit of a presence, and not be, a stranger that just walks in every so often. They could be someone that teachers can form the relationship with, and parents and students. With the advent of the elementary assistant principals, which replaced the teacher leadership positions in a 10-month role, we didn't have that need anymore, so we adjusted what that 30% was for Bristow to be supervision at REACH, our alternative high school program. And while that sounded good on paper, it bumped into some friction because the time away necessary at REACH created some friction points at Bristow, and then not being able to always be at REACH when we needed the person there created some friction points at REACH. And so we've been working, with the individuals, with our administrative union, kind of talking about that, saying, we know there's an issue, we'd like to fix it within this budget. And so we're looking at how we can support Bristow with a stable presence throughout the entirety of the school year. And there's a couple of ways to do that. In one scenario, we keep the Bristow position as is in a year-long position, and assign them, a 30% duty that they're able to accomplish while in the building. In another scenario, we can translate that year-round position into a 10-month position, and provide them, that's their singular focus, is just on Bristow for that period of time. And then as you heard in my presentation, we have, in either scenario, we have the opportunity for some supervision at REACH that comes from readjusting some 504 supervision and some teaching assignment that basically solves both of those problems in a generally cost-neutral way. We haven't finalized exactly how we want to do that for Bristow, and that's a conversation, that we would have with the administrative union before really announcing anything publicly. But I know that it's gotten public attention, so out of transparency, I'm just trying to share some of the potential scenarios that could be possible. But at the end of the day, I think the concerns that have been brought forward are well aligned with our efforts, and that is, how do we provide both Bristow and the REACH program consistent supervision that does, that maximizes, the role of the assistant principal.
All right, if there aren't any other questions, oh, Ethan, yes.
A question about the tuition line 5430. The estimated excess cost reimbursement from the state, 5430. It was a email we sent explaining the assumptions last week. And I appreciate the information. The estimated excess cost reimbursement from the state was $6 million budget in 25, $6,150,000 for the current 25 year, and then it was estimated to go down to $6 million for next year. So I realize there's nothing predictable about the state, but why did we assume that it would be negative? My assumption would be the same as this year.
I think Ethan's asking, I think it was like, what, 6.1 versus 6 flat.
Yeah. It's not a big difference, but.
Understood. I see Liz is looking for some information. the one thing I'll certainly share is we do understand that this, and I think this is at the root of your question, we do understand that there's flat funding from the state, but I'll let you.
You know, as you know, at this point, it really is just an estimate. So there's flat funding, and so what happens is we are getting a certain portion of that flat funding. This year, their estimate is that we'll get $6,150,000 of that, but I really don't know what's going to happen over the next year as far as what our portion of total special education expenditures will be compared to other municipalities in the state and other school districts. And so I think it's prudent to make an estimate that is not.
No, I understand. My concern is the number's already at 39% increase year over year.
It is.
Yeah. So trying to find anything that will save.
If I understand, the costs are going up in every district. So the more the costs go up in every district, they're going to this state for more money, and the money is flat, so your percentage drops.
So if it was flat, it'd be at the $6,150,000, and the cost increases are captured in
The flat amount is how much they have. So if your need exceeds last year's, and everybody's need exceeds last year's.
It's a separate line item.
So, but the 6.1 that you're looking at, yeah, and that's based on a certain number. I think I appreciate your point that you're trying to make is like, if I understand you, you're saying, hey, we know we have 615 this year. Can we make the assumption that we'll have 615 next year?
If I could just add, Paul, so you have an increase of 10%. I think it was 10% is what I remember, per student.
We do.
Yeah.
But but every district will have that. So it's certainly unlikely that we will get a larger share of a fixed appropriation. And so I just feel that it's not prudent to assume we will get that much or even the same amount given what the trends are.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you know, it can be a case where you can look at another district who has either they have an increased enrollment or the particular needs of the outplacement that they face drive higher tuition costs that can negatively impact like the total amount of money that's available to go out to everyone else. It's just unknown. So we're trying to be. We know, put it this way, we know this is a significant area of a funding shortfall, and the $6 million contribution is conservative. We're already, we feel like this is already an area of, risk in terms of the financial costs. One of the things that may be helpful to kind of what you're asking is, I think we have the ability, if there's any overage this year, about putting that, there was some legislation that was passed. It used to be years ago, any overage that we had would always be given back to the town, but we've been in communication with the town about any overages we have, and as you know from the financial examiners, we're not expecting a huge, any form of a huge surplus, but any surplus that we do have, we can put into a non-lapsing account, dedicate it specifically to excess cost reimbursement, and that's an avenue that I expect that we will follow going forward, just given the volatility of this one budget item.
My concern is we're, in my words, not your words, overcompensating because of the uncertainty with the state.
I understand what you're saying. I don't have the same feeling. I feel that there are, several components in there, and so you have to make assumptions about each one. For example, this year in the budget that we're in, I had made an assumption that our per student tuition would be $128,000 per student. Instead, it actually came in at $138,000 per student. So when we're looking at 135 students, that's a very significant increase. I'm assuming that will go up 10% from our existing rate, but it could go up 11%. It could go up 12%. And so at each of these various components that make up our net cost, I'm making assumptions. And so I don't want to be, too aggressive in making any of those.
No, I accept that. Other
Yep.
than It didn't go up, it went less than 10% from the 128 to the 135.
No, the 128 was what was budgeted, not what was budgeted. It was budgeted
prior
for
year.
this year. So the prior year was much lower than that. So I understand your point. I'm just trying to explain my reasoning for why I budgeted or assumed the levels that I did.
I don't have a problem with it, other than I think it's overly conservative.
Other questions or I appreciate your observation and thought, Ethan. If I recall, last budget season, in terms of overestimating, it actually was done last season as well, and we know, unfortunately, after we voted on our budget, we learned after the fact of our reimbursement amount from the state being even less than what we anticipated, and so it's difficult to anticipate, predict. I certainly hear your observation and your concern, and I also certainly respect and hear the trying to be as mindful of what may or may not come and trying to plan accordingly, but certainly hear both sides.
The only thing I'd say, Lorna, is that's a different assumption.
Move your mic so folks can hear you. There you go. Yes.
It's a different assumption in the calculation.
True. Yes. All right. Other thoughts or comments? All right. Well, I am going to ask us to do a roll call vote. However, before doing so, do want to give everyone an opportunity to make a comment regarding what or how they plan to vote. Did you have another discussion point?
Yeah,
yes.
I wanted to make a motion that we pull back $150,000 for the tuition line. Just because we're basing it on the assumptions, and I think that one's overly conservative.
Is there a second? Again, the motion on the floor, or the proposed motion, is to reduce out-of-district tuition in the amount of $150,000. Is there a second?
Is that, I'm sorry, is that Ethan's motion?
It is.
Okay, so I will second that.
Motion made by Ethan, seconded by Gail. Discussion. So please share.
Sure, I don't have the schedule anymore, but my feeling was that we have a 39% increase, which more importantly, I think is $3.7 million. We've had problems with the calculation, but that's a function of the state. This is not, well, to me, that's not part, but we said they do level funding. So that would be the $6,150,000 repeating itself. So I'm just looking at it and saying, we need to cut somewhere. That to me was where I could do it based on the calculations.
Jason, yes.
Oh, actually, yeah. So to clarify, so are you saying that as you read the budget, we're double counting that? Or we're accounting for it twice?
No, we don't have it in, it's in the calculation for the actual, because that's what happened, or it's been applied that it happened. I assume the money's come in, but we don't have it applied to next year's budget. I can show you on the schedule. I don't have, I only took one copy. So if you look at the what happened?
Yeah, if I can tell me if this,
Well, no,
I think I have
just-
exactly what you're saying. So in 2024-25, the adopted budget, let me make sure I have this right. We were anticipating a $6 million reimbursement level from the state of Connecticut when we passed the budget. As we close out, and we won't have a final determined figure on this. Wait, Liz is going to like jump in if I say anything incorrect, and I'm hopeful because I don't want to. 78%. Well, let me even say a little bit more. When we built the budget last year, we assumed that we would have tuition costs at $16.6 million. From that $16.6 million, we further assumed we would get a $6 million reimbursement from the state. What we're finding is we're going to anticipate that our tuition costs by the end of this year will be $18.6 million, so above what we originally thought. And we will get, or we anticipate we will get, slightly above what the state reimbursement of $6.1 million, slightly above what we anticipated. Still, obviously, dramatically below where we are, because it's only 62% of our excess costs. For the upcoming year, we're anticipating tuition to go up. I don't know the percentage of increase, but we expect tuition to go up to $20.5 million. And we're assuming that the state reimbursement, while it's flat funded at the state, it doesn't mean that we're going to get exactly the same amount. So we're operating from that base of $6 million. So that's what Ethan is questioning. If today's projection is $6,150,000, could next year's projected reimbursement from the state also be $6,150,000? That's the nature of his question. And I think to what Liz is saying is we have considered that, and we're recommending a reimbursement rate of only $6 million because there's a fair amount of variability in this, in the costs, in how much any individual district will get, and even if the full amount of that money will be available to us in next year's budget.
So
I just wanted to add one more thing. We have not received the money yet. We don't receive it yet at this time of year. They're still doing their final calculations based on our March 1st filing, and then we will receive the money either, I forget if the distribution is April or May, but we do not have the funds in hand for the current year.
I understand, but the best guess based on something is...
That's the best guess right now.
And I'm just saying if they do the same amount year after year, hopefully they've gone up to the $6,150,000.
I respect your optimism. I guess we're saying we don't share.
My backup was the interest income on the special funds is $175,000. So if you had to, you could take that.
Yes, Claire.
So the percentage increase over the years, we had hoped 85%. It comes in 82, 78, 75, 72, all the way to the last year being 62%.
Correct.
And then each year, that amount that we get is 62% or 58% of the total. And now we're looking at $20.5 million for excess costs this year.
Exactly, and so I think what you're saying is it's a lower percent of a higher cost, so that the differential between what we receive and what we should receive grows each year.
Okay, so what if we owe in the end and it costs more? What's the benefit of taking it out of the budget now?
Because someone has to pay taxes on it, or a large number of people. So it's a small part, but it just seems if we can cut the costs where appropriate, we want to do that. It's not excessive, but if my understanding is they're funding at the $6 million, now the $6,150,000, being optimistic. They're not doing percentages, we were just taking it as a percentages. That's what I've thought I've heard.
That definitely is what you've heard. I guess the variable is, at this point in time, when we look at the total appropriation for the state and what our percentage of that, it's at about 3.3%. So depending on what happens in other districts, if we dropped and now our percentage is only 3.1% of the total or 3% of the total, then it certainly would be likely that we would receive a lower grant amount or a lower reimbursement amount.
Other questions or comments regarding the motion on the floor? Again, to reduce the out-of-district tuition in the amount of $150,000.
I don't understand the wording. When you say reduce the amount, are the amount allocated for tuition?
So so we have appropriated, in this budget, we are appropriating a certain amount for out-of-district tuition, and I believe what Ethan is saying is he would like to reduce the amount of that appropriation by $150,000, assuming that our reimbursement from the state is that much higher. Therefore, our cost would be lower, our appropriation would be lower. Is that correct?
I mean, so do you seriously think we're going to get more money from the state in this year that we're in right now? Or is this a numbers thing with interest that you're?
No, my original intent is to replicate what I believe is what we expect to get this year. So it's not to get a higher percentage, it's not, there'll be a lower percentage, but to say that. No, it's the same amount, or it's the same amount projected. I mean, I can only go on what's projected.
Correct. What I think
I'm just.
I want to reinforce is just one thing. I know Ethan's talking about the fact that the state funding's flat funding. So if we assume that at the end of the day, the pile of money that the state has to distribute out to all the schools is the same, what does vary year by year, to the point that Liz just made most recently, is, this is all based on actual expenditures across school districts that schools will file. And this particular year, our share of that money was 3% and change, which becomes the 6.15 million that we expect to get in total. That doesn't mean we're going to get 3.2% of the state's money next year. It really is a question of what are all the filings based on what is the trend of outplacements across all the different schools. So it's not a. I just want to point that out. It's not a perfect. I understand your logic 100%. It gives me pause knowing the volatility of this particular line item. So.
And I understand, but I just feel if we're going to be consistent with our assumptions, the 150 is hopefully not going to be there. I can't guarantee anything.
No, I understood. My assumption is that I'm consistent with the assumption that the costs in this area for the placements continue to go up significantly, which is kind of what we've seen over the trend over the last 5 years. So that's the part that I'm most concerned about.
And I understand, and that's why I didn't question the 10%, even though it seems high compared to this year. But again, I can only go on the data I have.
Understood.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll vote in regard to the motion on the floor. Jason.
So if we reduce this and then it turns out it's actually 150 or even more than that, or less than, we get less money from the state, which I think we all think is probably the likeliest outcome. Where do we make that money up from in our budget?
So at that point, we look at areas where we can cut. Maybe that means we keep a position open a little bit longer. It's kind of all the things we have talked about as we've seen this be an issue in the current year. It's looking at other areas where we can pull back our expenses, either as it relates to positions or vacancies or supplies or textbooks or those types of things. It's managing the budget to make up for that shortfall.
So there's not a reserve here for that shortfall?
No, there's not.
Any other thoughts or questions? I'm smiling only because I think we collectively all do appreciate and agree with wanting to try to find or do something. I think it's just that particular area, but nonetheless, we'll let our vote speak for it. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, with respect to the motion on the floor to reduce the out-of-district tuition budget reducing it by $150,000, all of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion does not pass.
You were a nay? I apologize. I didn't have my mic on. Very good.
Okay. Correct, yes. Thank you for being creative. Thank you. All right, that's what we're here for. Other thoughts or suggestions? Again, in terms of the budget overall, again, the proposed budget on the floor is in the amount that we see before us, which reflects a 6.95. Any other suggestions? All right, again, before doing a roll call vote, do want to give everyone an opportunity to share their thoughts about how they do plan to vote. And so, doing so, we'll go in alphabetical order. And Mr. Jason, may we start with you, please?
We could always mix it up and go reverse alphabetical, but thank you. So even under the difficult circumstances of setting this budget, and maybe all the more so because of it, I'd like to start from a place of gratitude. First to Paul and your team, many of whom are here. Thank you for the countless hours, the hard work that goes into creating this budget, but also the care and compassion. I think that sometimes gets lost when we start talking about numbers. But you guys never lose focus, and you never let us lose focus of the fact that these aren't just numbers. There's students, there's families, there's educators and staff behind those numbers, and that this budget has a very real impact on them. I was moved, Paul, by the speaker who came in to say that he had the privilege of serving with you, and that despite the fact that he didn't agree with everything in the budget, or that this wasn't the budget that he would want, that he had the utmost faith in you. And it reminded me that many of us on this board not only place our trust in you and your team as board members, but as parents. We entrust you with the most valuable things that we have. Second, and it's been said, to all those students, parents, residents who came out, who reached out by email, who took time to come to the Board of Ed meetings, the public hearings, or the town listening session. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your commitment to the town, to the district. It really is you who set this town apart. I'm proud to live here. I'm even more proud when we're able to debate topics which we care about deeply with the utmost respect and civility. And I think it really has been a model for civic debate that we've had over the last 6 weeks in a time of ever-increasing incivility. So I do think that should be a point of pride for West Hartford. The budget we have before us, like any budget, is one of compromise. It's a compromise recognizing that while our list of priorities is great, not to mention diverse and sometimes lacking consensus, our finances are not unlimited. This mismatch has been brought into stark relief by the sunsetting of the ESSER funds, which brought to light areas of need not previously recognized, as well as a really, really bright glimpse into what things could be with the fiscal surplus. But today we face not only the end of those ESSER funds, but historic shortfalls in state funding in education, in particular the excess cost reimbursement for special education funding. As I've noted before, I call into question the very idea of a surplus when we are not fully funding education in this state. The failure to do so acts as a tax on the residents of West Hartford, who must shoulder that burden in the form of increased property taxes, and on the schools who are forced into making difficult choices about where and what to cut. The failure to fully fund special education is a failure to fund all education. And while I recognize the impulse as a parent to say, let us shoulder that burden, or that I am willing to pay more in order to provide more, I must temper that with the knowledge that we are stewards not only of our education system, but of the financial resources we are provided with. Not everyone in West Hartford is in a position to take on that burden, and more we hear of the affordability crisis impacting so many in our community. We cannot budget in a vacuum. As a result of all these factors, the budget we have before us is not one of wants, but of needs. It is one that, after agonizing over this and taking this binder with me almost everywhere for 6 weeks, I believe will meet the needs of West Hartford students and families without a loss of the programming and services that set us apart. And so I am voting in favor of this budget, not, just like many of you, because this is the budget that I would want if we had the resources, but because it's the one I am confident will provide all that I have come to expect from West Hartford for our children, my own included. As we now pass this budget on to our colleagues on Town Council, I do so in the hopes that we and they will recommit to the oft-repeated quote that if West Hartford had a state religion, it would be education. To that end, and for my part, I will be proposing that the policy committee begin a review of class size guidelines.
Thank you. Ethan.
Thanks. So I would echo what Jason said, appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I'm struggling with the vote. I have a problem approving a 7.2, now 6.9% increase in the budget, especially when the interest rates have been 3% approximately or lower. At the same time, I respect the desire of parents to have a small class size. And I realize it's frustrating when to my mind, it's sort of random depending on how many kids are in a grade and just the numbers. While I believe we shouldn't change the class size per grade matrix on the fly, it was disconcerting the number of parents upset by the proposed structure. It wasn't one school, it was multiple schools, probably about half. And I should add, what was also interesting last night or yesterday during the meetings was seeing parents of small kids come. It wasn't just the senior citizens or people whose kids are out of school, it's those whose kids have not yet gone to school, looking at their costs. And I know for my own son, child care, daycare, it can be very expensive. So you want to try and balance it so we take into account the parents who want the small classes, which I fully respect and probably would be there with them, and then also the residents who are looking at higher costs and things that they're not ready to expend. So just on the matrix, I think we should relook at it. I don't know if it's wrong, it's right. It's been there since the 80s, so I assume it's probably legit, but it's definitely worth looking. I was also, I want to comment, I'm impressed by the number of parents and kids who came out on behalf of Quest. I will add that a couple of my kids were in Quest, and I don't remember it having that big an impact, so the program's obviously progressed substantially in the last couple of years. And then I mentioned line 5430, the tuition line. I just think we need to look at that hard because that's a 40% increase. More importantly, it's a $3.7 million increase. And I don't want to take anything away from what the special needs need, but that's 25% of the budget increase. It's just a staggering amount. And that's why I was hoping to find something in the assumptions. And then, I mean, part of the problem is the state is an unknown. So will we get another million repeat like last year? Probably not. But I think, and I will compliment you all for coming up with ways to alternatives for special needs students so the amount's lower. I did catch that, and it was pretty impressive the amount that you've saved in the process. So my concern is I don't see this expense getting better in terms of tuition. It's just going to get worse, and we need to figure out something or it's going to be a real problem. So I'm still uncertain what I'm voting, but I appreciate all the hard work and just wish it wasn't that high.
Thank you, Ethan. Gail.
Thank you. So I wanted to start by also thanking Paul and his team for all the hard work that they put into making this budget. I know this is a very, very long process, and I appreciate everybody who works hard to make it happen. I also want to thank all of the parents and the community that came out and spoke. And I want them all to know that we hear everything that you're saying. We appreciate the engagement, and we understand your concerns. Since I've sat on the Board of Education, this budget has gone up almost $40 million. It's just simply unsustainable in my opinion, and I've said that before. We are in a situation where state funding does not come through. though we are mandated to provide certain services by the state, but then they don't fund us. We have a situation a few weeks ago, or maybe months ago, where the state legislature put forth a bill, a bipartisan bill, to fund $40 million in help for schools, which was then promptly vetoed by our governor. So we're basically between a rock and a hard place. The things that are driving this budget are mostly items that we really can't control. We don't have any control over the major drivers of the budget, and we don't have any help from the state. This budget is, like I said, basically unsustainable. It will cost the average West Hartford family more than $1,000 this year, and we do that year after year after year. There are definitely people in our town who can afford that, but there are definitely people who can't. So I feel that as a more general concept, we have to find a way to get this budget under control, and I think we as a board need to find some method or mechanism going forward that we can have better control over the budget. I was very happy to see when we came in today that Liz and Paul were able to reduce the budget by bringing in some reductions. And for that reason, I'm actually going to support the budget. And I am, like one of my colleagues said, it's not exactly the budget I want. It's nowhere near the budget I want, but it does provide for the basic things that we need in our schools. And hopefully going forward, we can find better ways to make the budget more palatable in other years. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Shannon.
All right. So as others have already said, I want to express my gratitude, first and foremost, to the community members for their active participation through public comments at our recent hearing and the community hearings, which I heard were very well received, and I hope we can continue those with our town council colleagues, as well as the many thoughtful emails that we received over the past few weeks. I know it's not easy for people to take the time and put themselves out there, so it's very much appreciated. And it highlights that such involvement reflects our community's deep commitment to the excellence of West Hartford Public Schools. And I go in front of a lot of boards of education around the state in the work I do as part of an education nonprofit. And the civility and the thoughtfulness and the research and the due diligence that our community is doing and our administration is doing is unparalleled to any district that I have come across in the state. So very proud to be a part of this community. I truly believe that all of us, including the school district, the administration, our superintendent, and our Board of Education colleagues, have a North Star of ensuring that we maintain essential programs that serve all students while upholding the district's high standards. And as such, I am supportive of the budget proposed by Superintendent Vicinas, as it reflects our dedication to making prudent financial decisions without compromising the excellence that defines West Hartford's educational experience. I want to recognize the community's concerns about potential increases in class sizes. As a parent of a child in a West Hartford elementary school, I share a personal understanding of these concerns and see and hear about it every day. But I think, as we've discussed this evening, class sizes are influenced by enrollment, which can fluctuate pretty significantly, as we've seen just in the numbers released last week, and those will continue to shift. So I feel we've asked lots of questions, we've got pushed on this a lot, and I have utmost confidence in the administration's plan to mitigate larger class sizes based on the 4 class sections already budgeted for and the evidence of past professional judgment they have exercised in adding additional sections where needed. Also want to acknowledge the concerns regarding the adjustment of the 0.7 full-time equivalent position for the Quest program, especially recognize the compelling testimonies made by students who have benefited from the program. But as shared, this adjustment does align with the proportional decrease in the overall student enrollment and will not affect current program offerings as we understand it. And I would just like to highlight the importance of incorporating, Claire mentioned this at our last meeting, engaging project-based instruction for all students so that they are well prepared for their future career and life opportunities. And I do believe that that is happening across all classrooms in West Hartford. I just, like others, I want to acknowledge the unprecedented uncertainty stemming from underfunding in the Special Education Excess Cost Grant, support from the state, as well as the current federal restructuring. I believe the district will continue to engage in proactive planning to navigate this uncertainty and any challenges it poses as effectively as possible. We're all doing the best we can with the information we have. And as Jason noted, I want to stress the importance of considering our budget in the greater context and activate our state and federal delegation to advocate for increasing necessary contributions, many of which are statutorily mandated, and we need to just keep applying pressure, especially at the state level, but also anticipate what we need to just kind of block and tackle as we get new information at the federal level as well. So just to conclude, as noted by my fellow board members, I'm so appreciative of the collaboration of everyone around this table, also our student representatives. Just hearing your perspective informs everything we do. The administration and our community are all so committed and involved. It's wonderful. But at the end of the day, it does just sort of reiterate my support for the superintendent's proposed budget as a balanced approach that prioritizes students' needs. And I commend the administration's dedication to maintaining educational quality while being fiscally responsible to the town's residents. Your unwavering dedication is both pragmatic in terms of anticipating the unknown while simultaneously exemplifying the spirit of unity that propels our educational system forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Claire.
So I'd like to say again, I know how much work goes into this. It's been months and months. And then all the Board of Ed members, we carry this big binder. We spend lots of hours. It is our third duty as a board member, and it's a very tough one. I've read all the emails. I think we're over 120 right now. And I hear people, I hear them speaking. I really am impressed with the kids that come forward. So I know the hard work that goes into this. I will be voting to approve the budget as it was proposed. The rolling over last year's budget and continuing all our programs and services resulted in close to $16 million budget increase. Teacher contracts, utility increases, healthcare, and unreimbursed special education costs make up the bulk of the increase. The superintendent presented a lean budget with a $1.56 million in cuts, but it's still close to a $14 million increase. That is double the percentage of last year. I'm proud of our district and all the financial educational opportunities we offer. West Hartford students continue to represent the state with accolades, and our town has benefited from national recognition. All of this while offering quality education and keeping the cost per pupil right in the middle of all the Connecticut towns. I believe there is a limit to how much we can ask residents to pay in increased taxes. I'm hopeful that the budget we pass will be approved by the town council and we will not have to make additional cuts. I'm very concerned that our state's 8% reliance on federal funds for title grants and IDEA grants will be jeopardized with the dissolving of the Department of Education. How will we cross the bridge if our funding for special education, support for struggling students, and lunch programs is reduced? I was overwhelmed by all the speakers and emails we received this year from students and parents. It is so important to stand up for what you believe in. It's clear our residents care about the schools and are making their voices heard. Many shared their support for decreasing class sizes. I agree that a smaller class size is ideal.
I know as a teacher, the number of students is as important as the makeup of the class, the quality of teaching, and classroom management. Just today, I taught 3 kindergarten classes with 23 students in one class. During COVID, that class was 16 students. Adding 9 more to that class is a challenge. But schools across the U.S. are going back to pre-COVID numbers. I know teaching can be really hard, and a smaller class makes it easier. But unfortunately, each year there have been financial hits and increases in educational costs that make it impossible to revise the class size guidelines without a huge financial impact on the West Hartford community. I appreciate the hard work the administrative team, principals, and department leaders put into the budget. I believe the proposed cuts will not have a negative effect on the quality of education our students receive. That is why I will vote in favor of passing the proposed budget.
Thank you, Claire. Latoya.
Good evening, and I echo my colleague's sentiment and just having gratitude for everyone who showed up and spoken out, and of course gratitude for Paul and team for putting this budget together. I wasn't going to say a lot, but I do think there's something that needs to be said, and I'm going to share it in my remarks. And I'm starting with this quote by Audre Lorde, and pardon me, I get nervous in these situations because I know that I'm at this table for a certain reason, and it means that, like, I'm going to say things that are uncomfy, but I'm also uncomfy saying them. So bear with me. Audre Lorde, one of the quotes says, when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we're still afraid. So it's better to speak. And so I just, wanted to say, I know what it's like to have a disengaged superintendent, a disconnected board of ed, unsafe schools, and low-quality education. I know what that's like to be a student in those schools right here in the state of Connecticut, not in West Hartford, but right here in the state of Connecticut, in a city that is still in the same condition today that it was 37 years ago, because our state has made an intentional decision to neglect certain communities in this state. So I know what that's like as a student. I also know what that's like as a teacher. I know what it's like to teach in those conditions. And I know what it's like as a school leader. I've been a dean of students. I know what it's like to lead in those situations. And man, it's really rough. Like, it's night and day from there to what is experienced here. And so I wanted to just add that perspective, because as I come to these meetings and we hear from the public, and I look out in the crowd, I think I've only seen 3 people who look like me that have come and spoken up about, grievances that they've had regarding some of these issues. And so I think being a parent, being a Black woman and a Black parent in this district who is here at the time where we can share, I think it's important for me to offer a little bit of a different perspective. And not that it's right or wrong, but just some perspective. Sometimes you don't know how good you have it when you've never really had it that bad. And I think, like, I'm saying that not to diminish anything, but also saying that, like, I'm speaking from a space of never having privilege, like never, ever. And some of those students that were talked about in terms of, we have so many kids in these classes and they have all these issues and yada, 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 that, like me, some of those kids and their families know what it's like to climb their way out the trenches. And they have certain experiences and expertise that they can offer in a classroom, in a school environment, that just enhance everything. And when it's nurtured in the right way, and it's cared for and it's watered, that it can really add such a light to our classrooms and our communities. And so I was thinking about Quest, and I love Quest. I think it's great to give kids those opportunities. But one of the things I think about is, like, we're fighting, you know, to keep this program, and it's great, but I also think about like, man, like what if there was like a Black Quest or a multilingual quest, like programs where it was like specifically tailored to be culturally responsive to these communities. I wonder how that would inform our data. And so when I think about how we encourage our young people and how we as families in this district who do come from, the families that come from privilege are stepping on the stage to advocate and speak up and encourage your kids to do that, I think about how we can redirect some of that energy to be allies and speak up for those communities who have been systematically marginalized and who live right here in this town. I just wonder what that energy would look like if we shifted it towards that, and really came together on that. And so, you know, again, just wanting to be clear. And the reason I'm saying this is because, you know, this is a really rough time for our country, and we're seeing the trickle-down effect in our town. And there's just really big issues. And I think, you know, when I look at us not getting the reimbursements from the state that we're supposed to, that all of that stuff is directly tied to inequity. And there have been communities in this state and in this country who've been facing those inequities for hundreds of years. And we're now seeing some of those results, and I think maybe one of the most hopeful things I'm seeing right now is that some of the people who've like been in a bubble of privilege are now starting to feel a little bit of that tension, and it's causing a stirring. And I love the stirring, but I want us to like be cognizant of the kids and families right now that are waking up in our district every day, not knowing if it's gonna be safe for them, not knowing if they're gonna be able to stay in this country for another day, and really feeling like there's a target on their backs, and thinking about how we can really use our voices and our advocacy to stand up for them and protect them. And I mean, that's all I want to say on that. I think, you know, systemic racism is alive and well, and right now we're really feeling it, and I think that needs to be top of mind when we're coming up here and we're advocating, because this is nothing about right now is business as usual, and I think we need to be mindful about what we feel is like the worst thing ever happening, and how we use our voices. So I'm supporting the proposed budget. I would not be sitting up at this board table if I felt that I couldn't trust Paul and his team, or my colleagues for that matter. I do come from an activist background, and so if I felt that there was something that wasn't right and that there wasn't an attempt to be doing right by kids and families, I just wouldn't be here. And I wouldn't have a problem with saying that publicly. And so I am supporting this budget. I support my colleagues. I hope I haven't really offended anyone. I hope I have made some people feel uncomfortable enough to start thinking a little differently, because I think that's what it's going to take. That change comes from discomfort. So thank you.
Thank you, LaToya. And so with my thoughts, which I can't say much more than what my colleagues have shared. I appreciate what each of you have shared, but I first off want to certainly express appreciation to Superintendent Vicines and your team for putting together the budget and being thoughtful in doing so. But even beyond that, certainly want to thank our teachers, our staff, paraprofessionals, anyone who helps out in the school building to maintain the building, because everyone plays a role in helping to support this district. And so with that, absolutely have to express appreciation to all of the families that are part of this process, that have come out to speak up and out with their thoughts in regard to the budget. And this also relates to the children who've come up and come out to speak with their thoughts in regard to the budget. And that is what our charge is as Board of Ed members. As Claire mentioned, this is one of our charges, which is to establish the Board of Education budget. And we do not take it lightly. And with that, want to very much also thank our mayor and our town councilor for initiating and being a part of the listening sessions. This is something, since my tenure being on the board, is the first time that we were able to do that, to go into the community to allow for reciprocal engagement. As you know, with public hearings, it's just one way, where you come to the podium, you share, we receive, and we don't respond. Whereas with these 3 separate listening sessions we had, it did allow for an opportunity for comments to be made and for us to respond. And thanks so much to our town council and mayor for being a part of that, because what it allowed in a public-facing way is for all of you to recognize what is a part of this budget process and what goes into it. And it also was an opportunity for our constituents and the public to know that it really does involve all hands on deck to support this budget. As we've shared before, the town budget overall, 60% of it is made up of the Board of Education budget. We make up the most of the budget. However, we make up a minority of those in town. Just 30% of households in town are for students that are in the district. And so for that reason, we had to certainly give people and share with people and discuss with people, because everyone is involved in this process. And with the budget and with the numbers, we know that they are not mutually exclusive. And what I mean by that is, I appreciate all that my colleagues have shared, and certainly recognizing the importance that these numbers relate to people and they relate to human beings. And we know that several concerns and thoughts have been brought up by families with respect to class size. And we know that is something that we do not take lightly. And as has been shared, that is something that is not taken lightly when it comes to establishing that. And so for that reason, I do share the thoughts and desires of teammates to look into how to consider that differently moving forward. But again, it's not a mutually exclusive task, because in order for us to consider looking at that, that certainly, unfortunately, again, comes back to numbers and does come back to a budget. And that, again, involves all teammates that play a role in that. And so with that, we'll also say I'm very thankful to our delegation who has been advocating for us with respect to our reimbursement amounts, which we, unfortunately, for some time now have not received in terms of our fair amount. And so although they're advocating for us, we need to continue to advocate in that regard, because we continue to receive less than what we are due. And that is why still, nonetheless, so impressed and proud of our district for, with what we do receive, still striving to make the best that we can with it, still ensuring that we prioritize high quality education for all of our students. And I say all in bold letters, italicized, underlined, flashing, whatever you may say, because our district is comprised of many students of different abilities, of different backgrounds, of different languages, and we love them all. We love them all, and we prioritize all of them. So this has been quite a budget process. We anticipated that. We rolled up our sleeves some time ago, and here we are. And I will say that I am in favor of supporting this budget, because it is one where a lot of thought was put into it, a lot of time was put into it, and it is quite a lean budget in spite of. And as a colleague has shared, this budget reflects what we need. It's not what we want, it's what we need. And any significant changes to that will be felt. And we know that anytime there are changes to the budget, we certainly do not want that to be seen in the classroom, in terms of impacting the classroom. And so thought has been put into this budget, care has been put into this budget, but most importantly, care has been put into who the budget is for, and that is for our children. And if this process has not reminded us all the more of that it takes a village to raise a child, all hands on deck, well, we have yet been reminded again of that. And so with that, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Again, thank everyone that's played a role in this process, everyone that's played a role in this process. And please let this not be a one and done period of advocacy. Once we vote, we know it goes to the town council. Once they vote, please do not let this be a moment of no longer advocating. We have to continue to advocate for what our district is due with respect to supporting our children. And so with that, Charlotte, would we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Gagnon?
Yes.
Mr. Goldman?
No.
Dr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Mariron?
Yes.
Mrs. Nezzarella?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas Farquharson?
Yes.
Mrs. Yagaloff?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. The budget passes for the 2025-2026 school year in the amount of $214,751,800. All right, thank you. And now I will specifically thank my colleagues around the table. Thank each and every one of you for your thoughts and for your opinions and for your presence in this process. Again, we know that our charge is to serve the children and families in our town, and I appreciate that you do not take that lightly, even communicating with us en route from the airport and communicating with us out of town. So thank you all so very much for that. What was that, Ethan? Hey, yeah, yes, out of the country, that's right. Yes, yes, yes. And so, and Liz, thank you so very much, because you crunch those numbers real time. My, oh my. Thank you, thank you. And so with that, let us now move on to new business. State of Connecticut Healthy Food Certification 2025-2026. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education adopt the following two motions. Pursuant to CGS Section 10-215F, the West Hartford Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups. Also, the West Hartford Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in Section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the day of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food and beverage sales. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan, and also, thank you, LaToya, and thank you, Jason. All right, discussion. Passing it to Superintendent Vicinas and Liz, please.
Thank you. So what you have before you is our annual recertification. That is part of our participation in the National School Lunch Program. We will adhere to the Connecticut standards of healthy nutrition and healthy foods. By passing these two motions, we not only commit to do that, but we are eligible for additional grant funds from the state of Connecticut. We receive an additional 10 cents per meal, which this past school year was approximately $65,000. That goes into the National School Lunch Program accounting fund.
Thank you. Questions, discussion regarding the motion on the floor?
Just to be cynical, is there really a choice?
Yes, you could decide not to pass this, and we would not receive the additional funding, nor would we have to follow the regulations. I don't
Really?
think that's what you would want to do. I don't think that's prudent. We've certainly been following this course since 2007, primarily because of the benefit to our students and to their health, not just because of the funding, but the additional grant funds are certainly
Just
welcome.
as I was reading it, I wondered why they were bothering to ask, since it says required to certify.
If you would like to participate and adhere to these
Okay.
guidelines,
All right.
then you are required annually to recertify.
All right, thank you.
Any other yes, Claire?
So is there similar federal funding for the school lunch programs, an agreement we make with the federal government?
So as a participant in the National School Lunch Program, we receive federal funding. We do not receive a specific grant related to healthy foods. This program is specific to the state of Connecticut.
Other questions or comments? Gail, may you have any thoughts? Take the silence as no, not at this time. All right, so with the motion on the floor, all of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to staff communications and reports, where we shall receive our superintendent's report.
So I do not have news to report. I have a couple of things that I want to highlight, which will most of my news was stolen by Alexis and Sarah, and I'm so happy to do so. So glad to see how in tune they are with everything. But first and foremost, I did take a point of privilege during one of our workshops to announce Sarah Isaacs, but I want to publicly acknowledge her here as the very proud principal of Hall High School. So dramatically impressed with her leadership, and not in the least bit surprised of the incredible reception that she received by the hall staff when we announced her at the conclusion of the NEASC visit, which I will report on at a later time. But it sounds as if they have amazing accomplishments to share. Again, no surprise. Also, incredibly proud moments and so inspired by the wonderful celebration that took place at Conard for the Hall and Conard Unified program, the banner celebration. I need to give a shout out to Lisa Daly, who is our health and physical education supervisor that did a lot of work to help coordinate that event. But as Lisa has very clearly instructed me, the real heroes of the story, other than our student athletes and their peers, are our three coaches, Heather Russell, Tracy Kelly, and Tommy Varengia. Just amazing gratitude to them for the inspiration, the leadership, the direction that they provide that has made West Hartford one of only 3 school districts nationally to be highlighted by ESPN in this way and the Special Olympics. And a huge thank you to both of those organizations for coming and celebrating us. And it was magical. I have so many more things that I will share, but I'm going to hold some of them until our May meeting. It's been an amazing amount of things that are going on, an amazing amount of accomplishments. I might repeat a few of the things I was going to talk about. The computer technology team and those wins, but I'll save that for a different evening. One last note. I will again. I think I said it at the beginning. I want to thank the board. We just concluded with Board Appreciation Month, and you are genuinely appreciated for all of your extremely thoughtful engagement in this budget process, your advocacy for our families, and for the fiscal responsibility that you wield. I want to further thank our mayor, the town councilors who were present at those community conversations, who we passed this along to our town manager. I want to thank the leadership team that has been here at these meetings throughout, showing their support. But the community engagement, as was said, I think well over 120 or more email communications, folks coming out, and I think what has come through very loudly and clearly from all of the parental engagement is the dramatic respect that our community holds for our teachers, for our paraeducators, for everyone who works in the schools. And it's not lost on me that we are clearly not able to get everything that we want financially out of this budget process, but we are committed to providing that same level of service and giving students everything that they need and deserve, and we will continue to work on that as our North Star mission to support, inspire, and prepare every student every day. So a dramatic amount of gratitude to our teachers who have inspired this incredible community engagement in this very important conversation.
Thank you. Questions or comments regarding our superintendent's update? All right. Well, oh, your hand up. Yes, let's
My bad. It's not in the update, but all that sounds wonderful, as usual. I just wanted to say, I know that Eid just concluded this past weekend, and that we have a lot of students and families in our town that just celebrated Eid. So to all those families, Eid Mubarak, or Blessed Eid, and that celebrates the ending of Ramadan. And, for people who might not know about Ramadan, like, that's really intense fasting. And when you have students who are fasting and going to school at the same time and keeping up with their studies, I mean, that is just like another level of discipline that I find to be admirable. Also, just want to shout out all of our teachers, who have supported students throughout their fast, providing spaces for them to pray, and then whatever other supports are needed to families to be able to acknowledge that. And I think it speaks to the beauty of the diversity that exists within our town and our district. So, yeah.
Thank you. Other comments regarding our superintendent's report, or certainly holidays and pieces that are happening in our community? All right, thank you very much. Moving on to routine matters, where we have the financial report, seeking a motion. I apologize. Pardon me, Julio, I am so sorry. Excuse me. Now we shall move on to staff reports and board discussions. Thank you, teammates, for tapping me, alerting me, where we shall have non-renewal of non-tenured personnel report. So, Mr. Duarte, apologies once again.
No need for apologies. Good evening. Every year at this time, I present a list of all the non-tenured teachers whose contracts will expire on June 30th. And according to state statute, the Board of Education has to vote to non-renew these contracts. Once this occurs, we are then required to provide written notification of that vote to the impacted non-tenured teachers and administrators. Before you this evening, you have a list of 29 staff members who are being non-renewed. I did want to point out that all of these folks are currently in interim positions, or in other words, they are filling in for someone who has been out on a leave of absence and will be returning next year. So when these staff members were originally hired, they knew their contracts would expire at the end of the school year. As always, the pool of candidates that we hired this year was exceptional, and we would like to be able to find spots for all of them. And when I do my presentation for opening schools next year, you may see many of these names back on that list, because we always try to look at these lists, the folks on this list first. So following the vote this evening, we will provide written notification to those impacted. We will, of course, thank them for their year of service, and we'll let them know that, unfortunately, their contract will expire on June 30th. Again, this is more of a formality because they all understood this coming in, and they knew that this was going to be taking place this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have prior to you taking your vote.
Thank you. We'll do the motion and second, and then we'll have board discussion. So seeking a motion that the teaching contracts for the identified non-tenured teachers are recommended for non-renewal. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Discussion or questions? All right. Seeing none, all of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we shall move on to routine matters of the financial report. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the financial report for the period ending February 28th, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Discussion. Well, once again, Liz, hello. Good to see you. And who is doing the honors today? All right, Jason, passing to you.
All right, more numbers. So I think the theme for this month's financial report is that we're back on track, thanks to the emergency funding coming through from the state. So we're once again, as of the end of February, projecting a small surplus of $50,000 in the general fund. Question, would that now end up, if we get that fund with the town, will that go into that fund for excess costs?
If that is what you so choose to do with it.
Under salaries, we are currently projecting to have a surplus of $300,000, driven mostly by favorable variances in teacher substitutes and teacher assistants. Benefit costs at this time are expected to be within appropriations. Total purchase services are projected to have a shortfall of $300,000. Most of that is driven by transportation costs, which are currently projected to exceed budget by $300,000. That number has not changed from the last report, though we are continuing to monitor that. Grants funds are also in keeping with budget. To date, we've not had any disruption coming from what's going on at the federal side. Special program funds, $350,000 education service reimbursement reserve is going to be utilized to fund out-of-district tuition. And we have the rental reserve fund. There will be additional $50,000 to custodial overtime. And nutrition services at this time earned an operating profit of $74,944 through the end of February. Interest income is at $104,219 and expended $176,516 on equipment, resulting in a year-to-date net income of just over $3,000. So again, back on track.
All right, thank you, Jason. Teammates, any questions or comments regarding our financial report? Seeing none, all of those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Liz. Now moving on to approval of the minutes. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of March the 18th, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, LaToya. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Shannon. Discussion, suggested edits? Seeing none, all of those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Now seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the budget workshop of March the 12th, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, LaToya. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Discussion, suggested edits? Seeing none, all of those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Now seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the budget workshop of March the 26th, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Moved. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Jason. Is there
My brain.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, LaToya. Any discussion or suggested edits? Seeing none, all of those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you so very much. Now moving on to information and reports. Board members, do we have any communications and reports from other boards or other organizations? Any other information or discussions? Claire.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, I was able to attend the pep rally and was so impressed with the whole organization, but the energy and the excitement, it was amazing. And one of our athletes hit a basket and the whole crowd screamed and yelled, and it just, there were a lot of parents there too that were close to tears. So I know what it does for me as far as my daughter being an athlete, but what it does for the general population, it really showed that this isn't just for kids with special needs, it's for everybody. And it really makes West Hartford a unique place. And I just was very proud of the district.
May I apologize? In my report, I failed to mention, so the board members, you've received a save the date for our annual military inductee dinner. If there are, I mean, it's appropriate. We're in the month of the military child. I heard about the Purple Up breakfasts happening. So I just wanted to make mention to this, especially if there are families listening at home who have a child that is graduating this year, going into any form of military service, whether that's active duty, reserve service of any form, or to a military academy. There should be an email going out through their school, through the counseling department, to elicit their potential interest to come to this just amazing celebration that's held annually, hosted by the American Legion Post 96 here in West Hartford.
What was the date on that?
It's going to be Tuesday, May the 27th, the day after Memorial Day.
Thank you.
Thank you for that update and announcement. And thank you, Claire, very much as well for sharing about the wonderful event from last Friday. It absolutely was wonderful. And Ethan, you're so funny. You just hold that finger up. Yes, Ethan.
So it just occurred to me, I think we should thank Gail for attending, because it's like 4 in the morning, I think.
I was going to say, she started at 2 in the morning. I'm pretty sure it's 4 in the morning. So she is unquestionably a trooper.
Gail, we're giving you your flowers. You deserve your flowers. And thank you for reminding us of the commitment of being a part of this board. We're so thankful for you demonstrating that. So Gail, thank you. All right, Ethan, good looking out. Shannon, yes.
I believe, I was driving, but I believe that there was a reference to tomorrow being Paraeducator Day, and just want to extra emphasize the gratitude for everybody working as paraeducators in our system, because I know that they are a tremendous resource, and I'm also the proud daughter of a former paraeducator from Whiting Lane. So just it's something that I'm glad there's a day. It should be every single day, but be sure to thank your paraeducators. And just a fun fact, as I was coming from the airport, a woman leaned over and goes, "Are there gift cards at the Starbucks?" And I go, "Yeah, maybe at the airport, I assume." So she leaned over, she goes, "Every time I get on the airplane, I give the flight attendants a gift card." And I was like, that's the nicest thing ever. So those little, they go a long way, those little thoughts. So.
All right, so it's Autism Awareness Day and the month of April. We also recognize all of our students and their wonderful abilities and talents, and those that identify as being autistic as well. So wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And we'll give you your flowers as well, because we know that you've been in 3 airports and you had to catch another flight to get here. So thank you.
The best one is Bradley.
All right, all right. Any other information or discussions, teammates? All right, well, I'm going to give all of you your flowers. Thank you all so much for being here. And students, want to give you your flowers as well. You have hung with us the entire time. Bless you, thank you, bless you. Yes, 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 wonderful. You continue to represent your schools so very well. Hang in there. We know senioritis is kicking in, but hang in there. All right, thank you. And so now moving on to board member, we already did that, information and reports, you've covered that. So now let's go on to future business. Announcement of future meeting dates. Our next meeting will be in May, again, no longer in April. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, May the 6th, 2025. Our regular Board of Education meeting here at 7 o'clock in room 314 at the Town Hall, followed by Tuesday, May the 20th, 2025, our regular Board of Education meeting at 7 o'clock here at the Town Hall, and then our last Board of Ed meeting this academic school year on Tuesday, June the 3rd, 2025, 7 o'clock here in room 314 at the Town Hall. Is there a request for any future agenda items? Jason.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but even knowing we only have 3 meetings left, I would like for the policy committee to begin the process of figuring out what a thorough and comprehensive review of our classroom size guidelines would be. And even though as a board, actually, if we look, we only have till November as currently constituted, I think we need to start laying that foundation. I think we owe it to the students, the parents who have come out. And as was mentioned a number of times, the last 10 years since we've reviewed that have not been a normal 10 years. It's not like going from 1970 to 1980. I think we've traversed such different ground over those 10 years that we should be taking a look at that.
All right. Duly noted. Thank you for the policy subcommittee to review and discuss. Yes, thank you. Any requests for future agenda items? Shannon, yes.
So I've been part of a really amazing book group at Sedgwick that is being done on The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, and it's a collection of teachers and parents coming together to talk about the book. And in light of the fact that he came and spoke to the Superintendent's Association a couple weeks ago, he's just very front of mind. And if you haven't read his book, definitely read his book. And I would love if there's a way to bring some of the learnings and discussion from that conversation at Sedgwick to the board. I think that could be really powerful to hear how we as a community can address what we want to move towards more. You know, we talked about play-based learning. You know, the whole book is focused on increasing play-based childhood and decreasing screen-based childhood practices. And so I think that that would be very timely for us to discuss.
Thank you. Duly noted as an agenda item, future agenda item. All right. Any other suggested future agenda items? Again, so far what has been shared has been an item for the policy subcommittee. Thank you, Jason. And an item for a future agenda item. Thank you, Shannon. Any other? Yes, Claire.
Yeah, for a couple years now, I would like to see if we could do some kind of dream projection of increasing pre-K opportunities within our district. With the lottery, up to, I think, 500 families did not get a placement. And I don't know what's involved about that, but it would be great to at least set some 5-year or 15-year goals of increasing seats.
Thank you, Claire. So as noted for a future agenda item regarding pre-K projections. All right. Ethan.
So I might as well get in on it. I'd like to propose that we have a discussion again on the Finance Committee, just because we had a massive, to me, very large increase this year, and I'm fearful of what next year will bring. So the more we can anticipate, think through this out, I think it'd be beneficial. So I'd like to discuss having a Finance Committee.
Thank you, Ethan. So a future agenda item regarding discussion of a finance committee. All right. So just to make note, and again, any other suggested future agenda items? Okay, we have 3 suggested agenda items, 1 suggested item for the policy subcommittee. Just want to remind us we have 3 board meetings this academic year remaining. And then we kick off again in September of 2026 for the next academic school year. So these suggested future agenda items are ones for where we are, but I don't want to give a false sense of hope that they will all be on prior to the conclusion of this academic school year, unless I'm misspeaking. I don't. Okay, all right. And so we'll try our best with that. But thank you very much for the suggestion, Ethan. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Jason. And thank you, Claire. All right. We'll move on now to comments from visitors. Do we have any visitors here that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we do not have an executive session, therefore seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Meeting adjourned.